I never really paid much attention to the neighbor. Sure, Dan was around, mowing his lawn, washing his car, waving politely when we crossed paths. He was the guy next door, the type you'd forget about 5 minutes after seeing him. Married once, divorced now, living alone in his house with a dog that barked at everything. That's all he was to me. At least, that's what I thought. My wife, Emily, had always been the sociable one between us. She made friends easily, remembered birthdays, sent out Christmas cards with handwritten notes. I, on the other hand, was content keeping my world small: work, home, an occasional drink with friends. So when she started talking more about Dan, I didn't think much of it. He's really handy, she'd say, sipping her coffee at the kitchen counter. Helped me fix the fence while you were at work. Or, Dan's dog got out again. I helped him find her. Poor thing was so scared. Normal, neighborly stuff, right? Maybe I should have noticed something earlier. The way she started keeping her phone close, how she'd laugh a little too hard at messages she wouldn't share. The sudden urge to go for evening walks alone. Little things that, by themselves, meant nothing. But together, they formed a picture I didn't want to see. And then, one night, I did see. It was late. I had just gotten home from work, exhausted, ready to collapse into bed. Emily wasn't there. I figured she was still out on one of her walks, but something felt off. I stepped to the window, looking out toward the street. That's when I saw her. She wasn't walking. She was standing in Dan's driveway. Close. Too close. I saw the way she leaned into him, the way his hand brushed against her arm, the way she tilted her head up, lips parting just slightly. It was subtle, almost innocent, but my gut knew better. I didn't say anything that night. I should have. But instead, I stood there, staring through the glass, as the cracks in my marriage quietly widened. The next morning, I told myself I had imagined it. That the long hours at work, the stress, the exhaustion, it was all playing tricks on me. Emily and Dan? No, it wasn't possible. And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling. She was already up when I walked into the kitchen, humming softly as she poured herself a cup of coffee. She looked normal, like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't been standing in our neighbor's driveway, leaning into him like he was something more than just a guy next door. Morning, she said, glancing at me with a smile. You're up late. I grunted in response, my eyes studying her. Looking for something, anything, that might confirm what I thought I saw. But she was the same Emily she had always been. Barefoot, hair slightly messy, wrapped in that old sweater she stole from me years ago. Maybe I was being paranoid. Sleep okay? She asked, taking a sip of her coffee. I hesitated. Yeah, I lied. And that was it. No tension, no awkwardness. Just a normal morning between a husband and wife. But as I sat down at the table, watching her scroll through her phone with that same little smile she used to give me, I knew something was different. I just didn't know how bad it was going to get. I don't know what pushed me to check her phone that night. Maybe it was the way she had been smiling at the screen earlier, her fingers moving quickly over the keyboard, completely unaware of my presence. Or maybe it was just instinct, the kind that whispers in the back of your mind when something isn't right. Emily used to leave her phone lying around. She never cared if I picked it up to check the time or play music while I cooked. But lately, it was always face down, always within reach, always locked. That night, while she was in the shower, I saw it sitting on the nightstand. The screen lit up briefly, just long enough for me to see a notification. A message from Dan. My heart started pounding. I reached for the phone, my fingers hovering over the screen. I wasn't the kind of guy who checked my wife's phone. I never had a reason to. But now? No, I needed to know. I pressed the home button. Enter passcode. She had changed it. I tried the old one, her birthday. Wrong. I tried our anniversary. Wrong again. The weight in my chest grew heavier. Emily never changed her passcode. Ever. The shower turned off. I quickly put the phone back and stepped away, pretending to check something on my own. A few moments later, she walked in, towel wrapped around her body, hair dripping onto her shoulders. She gave me a quick glance, then her eyes flicked to her phone. Just for a second. And in that second, I saw something I hadn't seen before. Guilt. She picked up the phone, turned away from me slightly, and unlocked it, her fingers moving too quickly, too practiced. A new passcode, already memorized. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I didn't say anything, but I knew. I just didn't know how much worse it was going to get. I started noticing a pattern. Emily had always been a homebody. If she wasn't working or running errands, she was here, curled up on the couch with a book, watching one of those crime documentaries she loved. But lately, she had places to be. Always in the evening. Always after I got home from work. It started small, quick trips to the store, a late-night run to grab ice cream, suddenly remembering she needed something from Target. But then it escalated. "I'm meeting Sarah for a drink," she'd say, slipping on her shoes. Or, "I'm going for a drive, just to clear my head." The first few times, I didn't question it. I wanted to trust her. I needed to trust her. But the night she left at 9 p.m. to grab some things for the house and didn't come back until nearly midnight, that was when I knew. I was sitting on the couch, pretending to watch TV, but my mind was elsewhere. The silence of the house felt suffocating. I checked my phone. No text, no update. Nothing. And then, finally, I heard the garage door. I stayed where I was, listening as she came inside, dropping her purse onto the counter. She didn't even have shopping bags. "Hey," she said casually, like she hadn't just disappeared for 3 hours. "Hey," I replied, keeping my voice even. She kicked off her shoes, stretching like she was exhausted. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yeah, just took longer than I thought." She didn't offer any more details. She didn't even try to make up an excuse. And maybe that was the worst part. She didn't think she needed one. She walked past me, pressing a quick kiss to my forehead before heading upstairs to bed. Just like that. Like nothing was wrong. Like I hadn't just spent the last 3 hours wondering if my wife was with another man. I sat there in the dark for a long time, staring at the place where she had been standing. Then, for the first time since this whole thing started, I let myself think the words I had been avoiding. She's cheating on me. The next morning, I woke up to an empty bed. Emily was already downstairs, sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling through her phone like it was just another normal day. But nothing felt normal anymore. I walked over and kissed her on the top of her head, the way I always did. But this time, something was different. A scent. Not hers. Not mine. Something else. It wasn't perfume or lotion. It was cologne. A man's cologne. I froze for half a second before pulling away, my mind racing. Had she hugged someone? Brushed past someone at the store? Or was she close enough to someone too close for their scent to linger on her like this? She didn't notice my hesitation. "Morning," she said, sipping her coffee. I sat down across from her, trying to keep my voice steady. "You get everything you needed last night?" She nodded, not even looking up from her phone. "Yeah." I watched her carefully. She didn't fidget, didn't look nervous. She just looked comfortable, like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. I clenched my jaw and stared at the coffee in front of me. I could have confronted her right then. I could have said, "Why do you smell like a man's cologne? Who were you really with last night? Are you cheating on me?" But I didn't. Because I wanted proof. Real proof. And I was going to get it. I needed answers. Real ones. Not just gut feelings and suspicious glances. I needed undeniable proof. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I tracked her. It started with something simple. One night, while she was in the shower, I grabbed her car keys and slipped a small GPS tracker into the lining of her glove compartment. It wasn't high-tech, just something I bought online that would ping her location every few minutes. I hated myself for it. I told myself it was wrong, that if I had to do this, the marriage was already broken. But I needed the truth. 2 nights later, she left again. "Going out with Sarah," she said, casually throwing on her jacket. "I'll probably be back late, so don't wait up." I just nodded, acting uninterested. "Have fun." The second she pulled out of the driveway, I grabbed my phone and opened the tracking app. At first, everything seemed normal. She drove toward the downtown area, plenty of bars and restaurants where she could be meeting Sarah. But then she passed them all. Then she kept driving. 10 minutes. 15. Finally, she stopped. Not at a bar. Not at a restaurant. At a house. Dan's house. My stomach dropped. I stared at the screen, at the little blinking dot that confirmed my worst fear. She was with him. She had been with him all along. And now? Now I had proof. But I wasn't ready for what came next. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. Dan's house was dark except for a faint glow coming from the living room window. Emily's car was parked in the driveway, right next to his. There was no denying it now. She wasn't out with Sarah. She wasn't running errands. She was here, with him. For a moment, I just sat there, staring at that house like I could will it to burn down with my rage alone. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I had 2 choices. I could go up to that door, knock, and see what happened. Force them to explain themselves, to face me. Or I could wait. So I waited. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Finally, the front door opened. Emily stepped out first, her hair a little messier than before, her jacket draped over her arm like she had barely bothered to put it on. Dan followed. And then he touched her. Not just a casual touch. His hand rested on the small of her back as he leaned in, saying something that made her laugh. Laugh. Like this was just some regular night. Like she wasn't walking out of another man's house while her husband sat outside watching it happen. I felt sick. She kissed his cheek. Then she got into her car and drove away. I didn't follow her. I didn't need to. I already knew where she was going. Back home. To me. Like nothing had happened. Like she wasn't coming straight from his bed to sleep in mine. And that was the moment I realized I wasn't just angry. I was done. When Emily walked through the door that night, I was already sitting on the couch, a beer in my hand, the TV playing some show I wasn't really watching. She set her purse down on the counter, stretching like she was exhausted. Hey, she said, like nothing was wrong. Like she hadn't just been in another man's house. I forced myself to stay calm. Hey, how was Sarah? She didn't even blink. Good. We just caught up, had a few drinks. You know how she is, always talking about work drama. A perfect lie. Smooth, effortless. She walked over, leaned down, and kissed me on the forehead, the way she always did. But all I could think about was him. Had she kissed him that night? Had she whispered to him the way she used to whisper to me? I wanted to grab her wrist and say, I know. I know where you were. I know who you were with. I know everything. But I didn't. Because I wasn't going to confront her without a plan. Emily thought she was in control, thought she could sneak around behind my back and come home like nothing had changed. But she had no idea. No idea that I had seen everything. No idea that I was done being the fool. And no idea that I was about to turn the tables on her. If Emily wanted to play games, I'd play too. But I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to accuse her in the heat of the moment. No, I wanted to watch her lie. I wanted to hear the excuses, the fake stories, the twisted justifications. So I set a trap. The next day, I told her I had to work late. Big project, I said, shaking my head. Might not be home until after midnight. She barely hesitated. That sucks, she said, slipping on her shoes. But I guess that means I'll have a lazy night to myself. Sure you will. I left the house like normal, but instead of going to work, I parked my car 2 blocks away and waited. She lasted 45 minutes. At exactly 7:52 p.m., she grabbed her purse, checked her reflection in the hallway mirror, and walked out the door. I followed at a distance, my heart pounding. And where did she go? Right back to his house. I clenched my jaw, watching as she walked up to his front door, knocked once, and stepped inside like she belonged there. Like she had done this 100 times before. I could have stormed in. Could have ended it all right then and there. But I wasn't finished yet. I wanted more. I wanted undeniable proof. And I was about to get it. Sitting outside Dan's house, my hands were shaking, but my mind was clear. I needed proof. Not just for me, but for when she inevitably tried to spin the story, make herself the victim, gaslight me into believing I was imagining things. So I hit record on my phone. I crept up the side of the house, keeping to the shadows, my footsteps silent on the grass. Dan's living room window was slightly open, just enough for sound to carry. And then, I heard it. Emily's voice. Laughing, soft, familiar, but different. Not the way she laughed with me. Then Dan's voice. Low, confident. You sure he won't find out? A pause. And then Emily, her tone almost bored. He has no idea. He trusts me too much. A knife to the gut. I gritted my teeth, gripping my phone tighter as I kept recording. Dan chuckled. Damn. I almost feel bad for the guy. Another pause. Then Emily, sighing. Don't. He's a good husband, but I don't love him like I used to. It's not the same anymore. That was all I needed to hear. I stepped away from the window, my heart pounding, my body buzzing with adrenaline. I had proof. Undeniable, irrefutable proof. And now? Now, it was time for her to find out just how much I knew. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, my phone on the nightstand with the recording still saved, proof that my wife had been lying to me, sneaking around, betraying me right under my nose. By the time Emily came home the next morning, I was already in the kitchen, waiting. She walked in like nothing was wrong, tossing her purse onto the counter, stretching with a sleepy yawn. Hey, she said, like she hadn't spent the night with another man. You're up early. I looked at her, really looked at her. At the slightly messy hair. At the faint hint of cologne on her clothes. at the fact that she didn't even bother to make up a lie about where she had been. She was that comfortable, that confident, because she thought I had no idea. I took a deep breath, then grabbed my phone, unlocked it, and hit play. Her own voice filled the kitchen. He has no idea. He trusts me too much. Emily froze. Then Dan's voice came through. Damn. I almost feel bad for the guy. I saw the exact moment it hit her. Her face drained of color, her hands trembling as she stared at me, at the phone, at the undeniable truth playing in front of her. I let it finish. Let her hear every last word she had said. Then I looked her dead in the eye and asked the only question left. How long? She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. No lies. No excuses. No fake tears. Just silence. Because she knew it was over. Emily's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, her brain scrambling for an escape route that didn't exist. I waited. And when it became clear that she wasn't going to answer my question, I asked again, slower this time. How long? Her lips trembled. Finally, in a barely audible whisper, she croaked, 6 months. 6 months. I let out a sharp exhale, shaking my head. 6 months, I repeated, like I needed to hear it again to believe it. She took a hesitant step toward me, but I flinched, and she froze. It didn't mean anything, she stammered, her voice desperate now. I swear, I laughed. A bitter, humorless laugh. Oh, it didn't mean anything? I gestured to my phone, still clutched in my hand. Because you sure sounded real comfortable over there talking about how much you don't love me anymore. Emily's face twisted in anguish. I was just saying things. I didn't mean it like that. I slammed my fist on the counter. Stop lying to me. She jumped. A thick silence filled the room. For the first time, I saw something flicker in her eyes. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't sadness. It was fear. She knew. She knew I was done. Tears welled up in her eyes, spilling down her cheeks as she choked out, Please, let's talk about this. Let's figure this out. I shook my head. There's nothing left to figure out. I turned away, walking toward the bedroom. I was done talking. I was done listening to her beg. Because the next time we spoke, it would be when she got the divorce papers. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I didn't let her twist the story into something it wasn't. I just walked away. Emily followed me, sobbing now, her voice cracking under the weight of her own betrayal. Please, she pleaded. Please, don't do this. I made a mistake. We can fix this. I grabbed a suitcase from the closet and tossed it onto the bed. I scoffed, throwing open the drawers, shoving her clothes inside. There's no we anymore, Emily. She shook her head frantically, stepping closer. I'll do anything therapy, couples counseling. I'll cut him off. I turned to her, my voice eerily calm. You already did everything. Her face crumpled. I zipped up the suitcase and set it by the door. I want you out. She gasped, her breath hitching. What? I said get out. Her hands trembled. This is my home too. Not anymore. She searched my face for any sign of weakness, some glimmer of hope that I would take it all back, that I would forgive her. But there was nothing. Just cold, hard certainty. She wiped at her tears, then let out a bitter, broken laugh. So that's it. 3 years of marriage, down the drain. I met her eyes, my voice steady. You threw it away the moment you walked into his house. Silence. Then, finally, she nodded. She grabbed the suitcase, hesitating for just a moment before stepping out the door. I never meant to hurt you, she whispered. I didn't answer. I just shut the door behind her. And for the first time in months, I felt free.